So this is the glass painting set I bought off eBay, Fevicryl by Hobby Ideas. Now I believe this is quite a popular type of glass paint in India. I don't know if it is in other countries or not, but it is now coming into the UK, and I'm assuming it's available in the US as well. Opening the box, we've got a tube of outliner, black, and then we've got no less than 10 different coloured paints. Looks as though this one might have been opened, wasn't by me, but we've got a bit of leakage there. But anyway, a nice range of paints. I'll try and put the colour list up for you, but this nice range of 10 colour paints. Unfortunately, they are only these small 10ml bottles. I'm not sure how far that will go, but we shall see. I've chosen a design where it's not too heavy on one colour, and in fact I can change some of the colours as we go along if I wish, if I find out I am running out of any. Whoops, there was only 9 there. There's number 10. Okay, so this is the design I've chosen to do, and I'm going to do it on this roundel. To keep it still, I'm just going to add a couple of little bits of blue tack. Then hopefully it won't move around as we're working on it. Try and get it in places where it's not covering any of the important bits of the design. There's 2, that should be enough. As you know, I'm not particularly fussed on using tubes of outliner. Although we seem to have a nozzle there separate, and there's the outliner. So I'm assuming I'm taking that nozzle off. Take the seal off. I will replace that cap with this nozzle. I don't know if it's open. Looks as though it may be. Let me just test. And it is. Okay, let's go for it. It's a bit hard to tell whether the outline is going to be okay or not. It seems to be coming out okay, but the main thing is, will it retain its shape? And that we won't know until it's dry. So I will carry on and finish this, and then we'll come back and see how the outliner has dried. Well, if you look down here, you'll see I have completed the piece, although I must admit I had problems with the outliner. If you remember, I said in the first section yesterday, the sign of a good outliner is it retains its shape. That's true, but this one actually retains its shape too well, in my opinion. If you look at some places like this, use this here, when you do 2 lines with wet outliner, you expect them to blend into each other, and that hasn't happened. It has dried remarkably hard, one of the hardest outliners I've known, but it was difficult to use. It was thick, there were some bits in it, and as I say, it's retained its shape too well. I don't want to be too hard, because it could be that I got a tube of older outliner which wasn't as good as normal. It's the first time I've used it, and it's the only time I've used it, so I'm not going to be too hard. And it was certainly possible to do the outlining, but the standard of finish isn't what I would normally expect. Okay, having been a bit tough there, let's go on to the painting. First time I've used any paints like this. they're very, very, very flowing. I can see they're a liquid. A bit concerned about using them. I'm going to use them straight from the container, but I am going to have my brush on standby just to push it up to the edges. You can see I'm working on my light board. Don't worry if you haven't got one, just work over a white piece of paper. But I like this, it helps me to see any gaps. I'm using a solid paintbrush. Again, don't worry, with this sort of very liquidy paint, you might want, if you haven't got a solid brush, you might want to use a cocktail stick or something like that to push it around. And do note, I've checked that the surface is flat because obviously this paint is going to flow very well. Okay, I'm delaying the inevitable. Let's get on and have a go with it. Okay, that didn't flow quite as much as I expected. I was wondering for a second whether I got the pink there, but no, it is the red. Make sure there's no air bubbles and we don't have any gaps. So far, so good. This is rather nice to use. Very easy to get it up to the edges. I say it's not flowing quite as much as I anticipated, but it is flowing. Not quite sure how much paint to use. I've only got these very small 10 milliliter bottles, so I don't want to overdo it. Well, so far, very happy with that. I'm getting very few air bubbles in it, which I assume is a mixture of using it straight from the pot and the fact it is quite a runny paint. So we'll leave that to dry and see how it looks. In the meantime, I'm going to work on some other areas and we'll come back and I'm going to do a slight blend of colours. I want to see how it blends. But for now, I'm just going to carry on and do some other areas. Well, as you can see down here on this piece, I have got on and done a lot of the painting. Now, I did say after I'd done the red, which was true, I hadn't got any air bubbles. As you can see from, hopefully you've just seen in the sped up bit, I did then get air bubbles. So at times I have actually found it better to open the bottle and put my brush, or my solid brush, into the bottle and use it that way. I'm experimenting, holding it upside down, tapping it to get rid of air bubbles, keeping the pressure on constantly, not letting it suck air in. That seems to help. So I think there's technique involved there, and I think with the right technique you can use it straight from the bottle and not get air bubbles. I just haven't found the correct technique yet. I have already done a couple of blends and I'm going to show you a blend in a second, and it's worked really, really well. These are lovely colours, really nice, very smooth finishes, bright colours. So I do really like them. However, I've had even more problems with the outliner. When I said it held its shape too well, I did find it hadn't even sunk down onto the glass in places, especially where lines crossed. And that meant there was a gap underneath and the paint seeped underneath. I managed to deal with it, but it means I'm even less enthusiastic about the outliner. On this piece over here, I used a different outliner. I used Pebeo Gallery Glass outliner I really like, and the paints work with it absolutely fine, no problems whatsoever. So on this I've got what I call nice, good, clean outlining and these new paints. Right, back to here and the blend I was going to show you. So if I can get the correct colours, I can do a blend of red and orange, with red being at the top of these prongs. And as you can see, I am using my brush. And here's the orange. There we are, nice blend of paints there. This blend was the pink and the blue. Right, and that's that piece just about finished. Now I have done these two pieces and I have still got quite a lot of paint left. In fact, most of them are still over half full, I would say, with the exception of the white and the orange. All the others are still at least half full. The black's nearly completely full. The blue's still a lot in those. And even this yellow, which there is quite a lot of, is still quite full. So I could easily do another two, if more. So I shouldn't have been worried about the amount of paint I've got. I do have a slight concern with the blues. Let's just take the top off. This is a sea blue. This is ultramarine blue. And, you know, there's very little difference between those two. Either they bottled them up wrong, or there just isn't enough difference in the two paints. They're very, very similar. In fact, I couldn't tell the difference between those two. So on the whole, let's do a summary here. The outliner, really poor. Didn't like it, didn't enjoy using it. It didn't lay down well, it didn't smooth out well. If anything, it was too hard. Benefit of the doubt, I could have got a bad one. It does happen. So it could just be a bad outliner, an old one, or, you know, it's been in stock for ages. Don't know, but from this use, really didn't like it. The paints, loved the paints, lovely bright colours, very smooth finish. I think you could only use them on flat flood filling. I don't think they're going to be very good for working on curved surfaces, but for this type of glass painting, for doing roundels and size of straight vases, maybe lanterns, etc. Really good paint, lovely bright colours. This is the water-based one. I will try the solvent one at some stage, but yeah, highly recommend the paints. Not so fussed on the outliner, can use it at a push, but you're making life difficult for yourself. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, come and visit our site, come and join the conversation on our Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Happy crafting!